Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be going over 5 things that you should avoid when you're growing your tomatoes so you can get the maximum harvest and the best producing tomatoes possible. So let's go. Okay, the first thing that you should avoid with your tomato plants is either not fertilizing at all or over fertilizing, which over fertilizing can actually be quite detrimental to your tomato plants. If you don't fertilize your plants, you can usually have sometimes a good tomato harvest. It really depends. But if you're growing in pots, you definitely should be adding some fertilizer because your tomato plants, there are heavy feeders in ground or in pots. You're going to take up all those nutrients in the pots. So you definitely want to be supplementing them with something. The 2 fertilizers that I'm using this year is I'm using Fox Farm, this Big Bloom, and this one I'm putting in my green stalks. It's a liquid fertilizer, and so far my plants have been absolutely loving it. My green stalks are looking very filled out this week, which I'm super excited about. And this is the fertilizer that I'm using in my garden. It's an organic fertilizer. You guys will only be seeing me use organic fertilizers. It's just something that I'm passionate about, is staying purely organic with everything that I do. And it's a 463. And so, so far this has been really great. One really great thing about using organic fertilizers is that they're usually not as strong as a chemical fertilizer. So you don't have to worry about burning your plants as much. You still don't want to overuse them, but you can still have a little bit more leniency if you do accidentally over fertilize just a little bit. Your plants will probably be fine. So, but a chemical fertilizer, you can go overboard pretty quick. Organic fertilizer is the way to go, honestly, just all around for so many different reasons. But that is for another video. So, number 2. And that brings me to number 2, and that is overhead watering your tomatoes. Tomatoes do not like their leaves watered. They are susceptible to tons of different funguses and diseases, and overhead watering just makes that even easier for them. So definitely do not overhead water your tomatoes if it's possible. I know sometimes it's easier for some people to put a sprinkler on their garden, and that's okay if you have to. You can get away with it with putting in a drip system. That is ideal. So moving on to number 3. Number 3 thing to avoid is the way that you trellis your tomatoes. This one is definitely important. So when you go to your local store, your Home Depot or Lowe's or really anywhere, you're going to see tomato cages for sale. It's going to look like this, right? They're just these standard metal cages. And while these are really great, and you do see me using these are a determinate type of tomato. So they only get a maximum of 3 feet. And I don't even think these will get that. I think these are actually more like a 2-foot tomato. But most determinates are fairly dwarf, so they don't get very tall. So these cages are great for that. It just helps keep the leaves off the ground. And honestly, I probably don't even really have to have it. It'd probably be completely fine without it, but I just have it on this one. But if you're doing an indeterminate tomato, don't use these cages if you can get away with it, because they can grow easily over 10 feet tall. 2 trellis systems that I think work really well is the Florida weave, and also this is just a right here. This is just a cattle panel, and I have 2 T-posts, one here and one here, and I just have this guy trellised up, and so my tomatoes are down here. So this is definitely a really great trellising system as compared to like a tomato cage. And honestly, you guys, this is still a really cost-effective way to do it. In fact, I bet it's probably a little bit more cost-effective than even just buying tomato cages. So when these grow, you'll take these leaves and you'll just tie them up as you go up. And I would say every like 5 days, come out and just tie up what you need to as it grows, and just with twine, or you can do, there's tons of different things you can order online or go and find at your local store. But trellising is definitely a very important thing with your tomato plants. And that brings me to number 4. All right, and number 4 is location, where you put your tomato plants. Tomato plants need a minimum of 6 hours of sun a day. Now, there are some varieties that will do okay with under 6 hours, but most tomato plants need 6+ hours of sun per day to ripen their fruit. And yeah, you still might get some fruit off your tomato plants if they do have less than 6 hours, but 6+ hours is ideal for tomato plants. Moving on to number 5. Okay, and number 5 is over or under watering your tomato plants. There are several different reasons why you don't want to do either of those. If you've ever grown tomatoes and you've had a tomato crack, a big reason why that happens sometimes is because of watering issues. The inside of the tomato is growing faster than the skin, and typically the reason that that happens is because the tomatoes have gone through a drought where they haven't been watered and they've been really dried out, and then you give them water. Well, that inside is going to grow faster than that outside, and so that tomato is going to be a lot more susceptible to cracking. And so a really good kind of key measure to go off of with watering is you check to see if your garden's wet enough. Put your finger down about an inch into the soil, and if you have moisture or if it's wet that first inch, then you probably don't need to water. Typically in the beginning of the year, a lot of people's mistake is overwatering. In fact, you guys, I've actually made this mistake already this year. I did overwater some of the tomatoes in my garden, watered, and some of their leaves were curling up and in, and that was due to overwatering. But I caught it on right away, and now I've just kind of laid off a little bit of the water, and they seem to be doing better. So tomatoes like deep waterings, but they also like to be pretty evenly wet. So over and under watering is number 5. Okay, and those are the 5 things that I would avoid with your tomato plants. And now you're going to hear from other gardeners maybe something different, or a differing opinion, and everybody has their own kind of opinion or their way to do things, and I'm sure they all work great for each individual person, but this is just what's worked really well for me, and I've had a really great successful tomato harvest. I've had big beautiful tomatoes, and honestly, you guys, there's a lot of troubleshooting that I've had to do along the way with my tomatoes, and I've learned from them, and this is, so far as of today, this is the best way that I have to grow my tomatoes. And last year I had an amazing harvest of tomatoes. I put up several jars of cherry tomato pasta sauce in the freezer, and we had it all winter long. In fact, we actually just ate our last one about a month ago, which I will be posting a recipe on that. So if you're wondering why I have so many cherry tomato plants, and a lot of them are determinate, is because of that reason. Yeah, I cannot wait to share this recipe with you guys. I share it with all my family members, whether they try it or not. Yeah, I think you guys will really love it. So I just want to say thank you so much for watching this video. I'll probably be doing a garden tour on my next video. Everything has been growing really well this past week. But yeah, I just want to share these tomato tips with you guys, and I hope your gardens are doing amazing. I hope you have them planted. I wish you luck, and until next time.